Okay, so the president of Ivory Coast, you may hear me say Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. I'm going to use it interchangeably on in this episode. So the president of Ivory Coast just made an announcement that has a lot of Africans excited at the prospect of independence, true independence and sovereignty for several African countries. The president of Ivory Coast said that the French military is going to leave its country. I know that many Africans, in fact, majority of Africans do not like, who have an opinion about politics and geopolitics, do not like what the French have done in several African countries in the course of several centuries. Because even well, in the instance of some British influenced nations in Africa, like South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, many of these African countries were actually under British control for centuries. Compared to the British, which also has its, we also have issues with some of the things the British have done in Africa. But the French have been so mean. They've been so mean to Africans. So anyone who has an opinion about French influence in Africa doesn't have a good opinion about it. So that is why when several African countries have been kicking out the French military and French troops, it's been met with excitement. In the last time I spoke about this, I spoke about Chad and Senegal kicking out the French military. And I was happy about it. But it is now that this guy, what's his name? Ouattara. Please forgive me. I'm mispronouncing his name. Ouattara. Ouattara. I always mispronounce his name. Please pardon me. Anyway, it is now that he has said, oh, that the French are going to leave Cote d'Ivoire. That was when I took a step back and I said, no, something fishy is going on here. Why is that? Because, like I said in the introduction, if ever there was a pro French leader in Africa, it is him. You will call Paul Biya of Cameroon. You will call him. You would even say Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Nigeria. But he is more pro France than Tinubu. He is so pro France. He's so pro France. So that's why I took a step back and I said something fishy is going on. Because this thing may not be the fight for sovereignty as many of us have thought it has been for a while. So what do I think it is? First of all, I want to mention that when he or Atwara came into power, he came into power with the help of the French military. So he actually owes his seat, his power in Cote d'Ivoire to France. So if France is responsible for you coming into power, you can't just wake up and tell the French military to get out. No, now. Remember that even this guy, this Ouattara guy, right? Even this president of Ivory Coast, he and Bola Ahmed Tinubu were at the forefront of trying to invade Niger in 2023. If he wanted to invade Niger in 2023 at the behest of France, he can't suddenly in 2024, because it was at the ending of 2024, last week of 2024, he made this announcement. So he can't suddenly in the last week of 2024 wake up and say, no, no, France is bad for Cote d'Ivoire, get out. No, no, no. No, it doesn't work like that. So clearly something fishy is going on. And as I began to think, I then remembered that in mid 2024, I actually came across a news story by, I can't remember where I saw that thing, but I remember that Macron himself, not somebody else, said that that France was going to reduce its military presence in Africa. Macron said it. So this is actually French policy, and they're going to reduce their military presence in Africa, working together with African leaders. So this is not a situation of the president of Ivory Coast waking up and saying no, France military should get out, French military should get out of Cote d'Ivoire. It is a situation of France working to change their policy in Africa, and they are working with leaders like Ouattara of Ivory Coast. Do you understand? So it is not actually a case of independence. It is actually a case of Cote d'Ivoire working with the imperialists, the imperial power of France, to help them remove smoothly, without chaos, remove the French military from from Cote d'Ivoire. So it is not an independent decision. And it is the same thing with Senegal. It is not an independent decision of President Faye of Senegal to remove the French troops. No, it is not. That's what it is. It is not independence. Remember, 2 months ago, if I'm not, I think it was 2 months ago, but I actually discussed it on this show when Russia proposed a motion in the United Nations calling for the condemnation of colonization in all its forms, right? Russia proposed that much. I think it was back in September. Was it September? So it was either September or October in 2024. Russia pushed this motion in the UN. I spoke about it on this show. African countries abstained. Which African countries? Senegal, Ivory Coast. They abstained from voting against a motion that asked for the condemnation of colonization in all its forms. If these countries voted to abstain from this colonization motion in the United Nations, they cannot suddenly now come out to say, no, we don't want French military in our country. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. I'm sorry to break your heart because my heart is also broken was also broken when I remember this story. But this is actually a French policy. This demilitarization of African countries from French military is actually a French policy. It is not an independent decision of these African nations like Senegal and Ivory Coast and Chad. Even Gabon, I think Gabon too is actually, maybe Gabon's leader has not made an announcement, but he will soon make the announcement because France said that they were going to reduce their military presence in Gabon. So what we are seeing now is not a situation of independence of Africa. No, it is these African nations playing puppet as usual, helping France achieve its policy in their respective countries. So why is France withdrawing its troops from these African countries, you might ask? Well, because the anti-imperialist sentiment in Africa, particularly anti-French sentiment in Africa, is growing. Every day, here and there, you're seeing African youths burning the French flag. Every day. Every day, you're seeing African youths protest against French military in the country. People are sick of France. At the meantime, I spoke on this show about a particular thing, and many of the people who commented told me, oh, Amanda, you're wrong in this regard. The time when majority of the people who commented said you're wrong in this regard was when I said African nations to still, even as you're looking to kick out France, we should still maintain economic partnership. Let's still do business with France. Many commenters on the episode said no, France should go. We do not want France, to show you the how much Africans are sick of France. And this is not just a situation of French speaking African countries. No, every African country, every African who actually takes the time to look at things, whether you're in an English speaking African country, an Arab speaking African country, even the Africans in diaspora, they all say no, France should go. So this is the reason why a military base in your country clearly speaks. It's the loudest way to say you are not a sovereign nation. So when anti-French sentiment is growing, many of the time is directed at French military bases in African countries. So France reducing its military presence in several African countries is because people are sick of France. So France is trying to to whitewash itself. Let me use that word. France is trying to whitewash itself to make it look like, oh, we are changing because we want to work with Africans as equal partners. We are tired. We are no longer going to be playing this imperialist card. We are no longer going to be saying we are the boss and Africans are the servants. No, we are not going to do that. We are going to treat Africans like equal partners. So this is France trying to whitewash itself. But this is not the first time. For several decades now, even with Sarkovsky, yeah, that's the pronunciation of his name, Sarkovsky. Even with him, and even with the one before him, everyone has been saying, all right, we need to change France's behavior. They will change it in a certain way, but the core of the thing is still there. It's the imperialism. It's the fact that France, in the head of its leaders, they say Africa is ours. Africa is for us to do as we please. So they may change the way they operate. They may adjust it, but the core of the essence is still the same. The ideology is still the same. They are just changing the mode of operation, but the ideology, the goal is still the same for the subjugation of these African countries under the thumb of France. That's what it is. It's painful, I know, because in the last episode when I discussed this thing, I was happy for Senegal and Chad. Even when I even spoke about the Senegal and Chad, I said something about the leadership of Chad because there's something that leadership of Chad has done, did rather, that I do not agree with. So I mentioned it on that episode. You can go and find it. But then back then when I had that thing, I said, okay, this may be a good thing. But now that I'm beginning, I just remembered that Macron himself made this statement. So France is just changing its mode of operation. France is just changing its mode of operation. France is not, don't kid yourself. France is not looking at Africa like equal partners. It will never, because it needs, like I mentioned in the last episode of this show, France needs its colonies in Africa for France to still feel like it's important in the global context. Because in the global context, France is not a sovereign nation. I mentioned it when I told you that the EU is an American project to subjugate the countries of Europe. NATO is an American project to militarily put the countries of Europe under US imperial thumb. So if France should lose its colonies, because that is what they are, if France should lose its colonies in Africa, it would wake up to the fact that it's not important anymore. And it will not be able to stomach that. And that's the truth. So all this clamoring that I'm seeing on Twitter or X, all this clamoring and excitement I'm seeing, even when Africans are analyzing the news and they are saying, "Oh, this is liberation." It is not liberation. France is just changing its tactics. It's just changing its mode of operation. It is not any, and it is not liberation in the tiniest, in even the loosest form of the word. It is not liberation. It is not liberation. And let's not forget the humiliation of France in the Sahel countries of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. It was an outstanding humiliation, an outstanding humiliation, a very terrible humiliation. France will not want to experience that again. So, in a way, to protect itself from experiencing that humiliation again, because when they kicked out the French military, France did not see it coming. So, in a way to protect France from experiencing such a humiliation again, they connived this method of removing the French military. While anti-French sentiment is increasing in all these African nations, right? And then the opposition party will find out to score points, they might as well keep speaking anti-France sentiment. So, like I mentioned before, when all this anti-French sentiment is growing, the place is targeted at its military bases. That's the target. Its military bases. So France is being precautious and is protecting itself to remove the military bases first before it sees such a thing again. Last year, middle of last year, when Macron said that France was going to reduce its military presence across Africa, one of the things, and there's mentioned that we're going to focus on different other tactics to, to, to implement in Africa. One of the things that Macron said that they were going to do was, I'm paraphrasing now, but this is as good as what he said. One of the things that Macron said that we're going to do is that we're going to focus on countering propaganda. I'm now going to tell you what it means. So we're going to focus. France is going, and I mentioned it on this show. I told you on this show, France is now going to focus on information warfare. Information warfare. That is what France is going to focus on. So the military, because information warfare, propaganda is an arm of the military. If not, if you don't believe me, ask me why is it the Pentagon that handles American propaganda? Why? Why is it when you see America undergoing a propaganda effort in several countries, not just African countries, in several countries, it is the Pentagon that manages it, not the information, no, not the Voice of America or that. No, it's the Pentagon because it's a military warfare. It's warfare. It's just that it is non-kinetic. So France said they were going to focus on information warfare. Information. There was this brigade that they were mentioned, and that brigade, what they do is information warfare. And I told you on this show back then, I said, so expect to see more stories about how France is good for Africa. Expect to see more social media handles tell you that France has changed his tactics in Africa and is working for the good of Africa. Expect to see more so called influencers take trips to France telling you how amazing France is and how France and Africa are made for each other. Expect to see things like this. Because if Macron said we're going to reduce their military presence, and we have seen drastic military reduction in Africa since he said that, like mid 2024, know that on the heels of this, you're going to see many stories, many influencers, many social media handles telling you why France and Africa were made for each other, so that they can change your perception of France in Africa. Because France has realized that even while United States, the perception of US in African countries is reducing just little by little, it's not drastically, it's reducing little by little. And that's because we are still hooked on American culture, American music, American fashion, American movies, American social media influencers, American technology, American um, political analysts. We're still hooked on all these things. So America's influence is still going to be pretty strong in Africa. But see, France, it's as good as gone. It is as good as gone. So France is going to learn from the United States how to use information warfare for its benefits. This is why I keep telling you. And you see why I say that the most important thing we can do in Africa is media. Every day it seems like this is something I'm hitting. Because the more I look, the more I realize that the most important thing we can do for Africa right now, because every other region in the world is using information, is in fact, let me rephrase that, is engaged in information warfare in Africa. Even Russia, China, United States, is not just France. Every region, the UK, every region is engaged in information warfare in Africa. So why is it that Africa, we do not have our own information space? We do not have our own information infrastructure to enlighten our population. That is why we are starting this African media movement in this month of January. And I want you to join me. Join me, pick up your phone, write and do shows, pick up a microphone and do podcasts. Start your own blog. If you cannot do a blog, use social media, use Twitter, use Instagram, use everything, use TikTok to push the message of Africa in the interest of Africans, because nobody will do it for us. Everybody will work in their own interest. That's what is going on here. France is reducing its military by itself. These African nations like Senegal and Ivory Coast, they did not wake up and say, no, France should go. No. France by itself is reducing its military and is coordinating into these countries, reducing its military to focus more on information warfare. To focus more on information warfare. If you don't believe me, if you're arguing that what is really going on in these African nations, right, with the kicking out of the French military, is really a fight for independence, why have they not received the same backlash as they received in Burkina Faso and Mali and Niger? Why? Why is everywhere silent? Why? Why are we not seeing them in Paris run around to see how to fix the demilitarization and or the kicking out of their military in different African countries? Why are we not seeing it? Why are we not seeing reports that Macron is worried? Why are we not seeing it? Explain to me. Why are we not seeing it? Because this is part of the plan. This is part of the Macron's plan, France's plan. That's what we are seeing taking place in Africa. It's not at the it's not it's not the independent thoughts of African nations to kick out the French military. No. It is a French plan to remove its military from these African countries, coordinated with the African leaders. That's what is going on here. Now I'm going to round off this section with a thread I saw by a lady, I've forgotten her name, but on Twitter, and I hope I'm going to send her a message. I hope that she can be the first guest we have on this show, because I want her to. She seems very, very knowledgeable about France game in Africa. She seems very knowledgeable about it. So I'm going to send her a message, and I hope that she would agree to come on this show, because there are a lot of questions I have for her, and I bet that you too would have those questions. So it was a thread that she made on Twitter or X, and in the thread, one of the things she mentioned in that thread is how France wants to, since it's reducing its military presence, one of the things it wants to do to really capture Africa, is with economy, is with economy, and the economy they want to extend. France wants to extend this from this currency it prints for the African countries, for its French speaking African countries. It wants to expand it into other African, in fact, it wants to expand it across West Africa. Now, I will delve into that, but before I delve into that, it's another thing that I want to mention. She said that France, now that it realizes that it's losing because of the anti-French sentiment, France is realizing that it's losing, it has lost the traditional French-speaking African countries. France is now moving into other African countries. That this time not just French speaking, but also English speaking. She mentioned another African country. She mentioned Nigeria. She mentioned Ghana. She mentioned Angola. These three countries. Now, what when I saw that thing, I'm like, yo, she's so right, and she understands this thing. Because what have we been seeing with Macron and Akufo-Addo in Ghana? What have we been seeing? I told you that Akufo-Addo went to France 24, and one thing he said is that ever since the French military left the Sahel, terrorism has become worse in the region. He's a sitting, now he's leaving, but a sitting president of an African country made this statement. And what did we see also in 2020? I think it was 2024. What did we see? France, Macron honored Akufo-Addo with a presidential medal. And the presidential medal that was given to Akufo-Addo of Ghana is a medal that celebrates individuals that have worked in the interest of France, that have worked to help the interest of France. It was given to an African leader in Ghana, Akufo-Addo. So if we say France is looking to expand into other African countries and away from the the traditional French speaking African countries, we can easily say Ghana, check. Yes, Ghana, check. Before, do you know what it means? Do you know what it means for a leader of a country to award a leader of another country a national honor, celebrating celebrating the leader's work to fostering, I'm paraphrasing now, to fostering the agenda of France. He, France just told you that Akufo-Addo is celebrated for pushing the French agenda. Even in Ghana, we can say even in Ghana. I hope I can. I hope she agrees to come on this show. I want to invite her. I'll send her a message today after recording this video. I'm going to send her a message. I'm going to invite her, and I hope she comes. I'll give you an update next week. Hopefully, she responds and she agrees to come, because a lot of things we need to dive into. Imagine the president of, let's just say, imagine now. Tell me how do you think the world will react if President Putin gave Donald Trump a presidential medal, a national medal of Russia, thanking him for working in the interest of Russia. Well, how would the world react? Or if Xi Jinping of China gave a presidential or national award to Biden of the United States, thanking Joe Biden of working in the interest of China, how would the world react? Or even if this same Xi Jinping of China gives Macron a presidential honor of China, thanking him for working in the interest of China, how would the world react? So why is it that Africans are quiet? Hey, colonization did not end though. Colonization, colonization did not end in Africa. They gave us a show after the blood of our ancestors, After the blood of those of freedom fighters who were fighting against colonization, after all the blood they shed, after all the fight, after all the torture, everything they experienced, they gave them a show. We did not realize it. And they were giving us marching songs. Remember when we were in primary school in Nigeria? I'm Nigerian, I grew up in Nigeria, and they'll be singing marching songs like on 1st October 1960, Nigeria's independence. We did not gain any independence. They deceived us. We are all colonies. We're all colonies. But that is that we can. Now let us look at Nigeria and France. Oh, you already know how you already know how I feel. But in case this is your first time of watching this show, let me give you the brief. President Tinubu of Nigeria has been the most. He has made a public spectacle of Nigeria. He has embarrassed Nigeria because he has taken Nigeria and he has put Nigeria at the feet of Macron to do as Macron pleases. To do as Macron pleases. Other than the fact that there are lots of rumors, a lot of rumors that Nigeria is housing military base, a French military base, quietly, secretly housing a French military base in Nigeria. Other than that, last week I discussed on this show that the leadership of Niger accused Tinubu of Nigeria of harboring terrorists in Nigeria. And these terrorists are taking their activities in Niger. These terrorists that Tinubu is harboring, allegedly harboring, because I even said on that show that I don't want to believe this because it's going to be a very disastrous foreign policy. But Tinubu is allegedly harboring in Nigeria at the behest of France, and the goal of this terrorist is to destabilize Niger. So you have seen another African leader. This same Tinubu was willing to go to war, was willing to lead ECOWAS to go to war in France. Sorry, to go to war in Niger at the behest of France. Because Nigerians said no, they do not want France again in their country, that France has been working to the detriment of their country. So they want someone else who is going to come to work in the interest of Niger. Tinubu said no, that you must have France. And with France was even, Macron was even willing to fund that military campaign. We're going to invade Niger, set the country on fire. Tinubu wanted to invade Niger, set the country on fire, just because France had lost its influence in Niger. Another leader that is not working for the interest of his country. They need to give Tinubu, Macron needs to give Tinubu his own medal of national service because he clearly works in the interest of France. Do you understand? This same ECOWAS that wanted to do this military campaign, this leader now of Ivory Coast was part of the people pushing that yes, ECOWAS should invade Niger and bring back Bazoum. Yes, I think it's Bazoum. Yeah, and bring back Bazoum in Niger. These people do not work in the interest of their respective countries. They are puppets. They are puppets. So let me round up this segment with what I mentioned about the Twitter thread that I saw. This lady um, post. In her Twitter thread, she said that now that France is reducing its military presence in Africa, it wants to come in with economy. And the goal of the economy is to, several African countries now are using the French CFA. They're using the currency printed in France. They're using it in their respective countries. So what France wants to do is France wants to use this policy and spread it across West Africa, where West African countries will now be using a currency printed by France. So this is France, their new way of bringing not just the traditional French-speaking African countries, but even English-speaking African countries. It wants to bring everybody under the thumb of France. And one of the ways it's doing it is with the ECOWAS ECHO. I know for decades, ECOWAS has been saying that they want to have a single currency that can be used across the region. so that it's going to help strengthen uh, us instead of relying on the dollar to do inter ECOWAS trade. Let us use the ECO. They've been saying it for a very long time, but let's use the ECOWAS currency. But she is saying, I hope she comes on this show. I really want to discuss this thing with her. She now is saying that ECOWAS, this ECOWAS, that we probably came out from a good intention, but this ECOWAS currency has now been hijacked by France, and France wants is going to assume control over this currency for African countries, even like Nigeria. So you in Nigeria, you're not going to use the Nigerian naira. You're going to use the ECOWAS ECHO. You are in your mind that they're selling it to you as, oh, now Africa is coming together on a single unit of currency. Oh, it is going to be France controlled. Maybe they may print it in one of your African countries so that you'll be thinking it's your own thing, but it's going to be ECOWAS controlled. And she said that all France needs is to go ahead of maybe a strong African, an influential African country like Nigeria. And right now, we have a puppet in Nigeria that if Macron says jump, he's going to say, Tinubu is going to say, how high? That's what we are seeing right now. So bear in mind that unless we can take control of our media space in Africa and enlighten the people about what's going on, they will sell these things to us. Because when I first heard the ECOWAS ECHO, I thought it was a good thing. It was until I saw her Twitter thread that I said, wait, what's going on here? I didn't know. So until we can amplify voices like her voice, we will be sold an illusion of independence. Meanwhile, it is not, they are now going to bring us to a place worse than we were before independence, because they never forgave you for even the sham independence you got. They never forgave you. Because before they could come in here and do anything and oh nobody has any explanation, it's their colony. But now they can't. They don't like it. They never forgave you of the thing that was not really independence, the sham independence. They did not even forgive you for it. So know that as they're coming back, they're not coming back for something that they're coming back. You're going to be in a place worse than you were before. Worse than you were before. Which is why Africa, as as a matter of urgency, we need to take this media thing seriously. We need to take it seriously because we do not have any media infrastructure for Pan-African media. Yeah, there are Pan-African media here and there, but they are not as loud. Like I mentioned in the last episode of this show when I was discussing the MAGA Civil War. I said the reason why the Republicans, the conservatives, is they are gaining momentum, and one of the reasons Donald Trump has secured the second term is because the conservatives have mastered the art of alternative media. They've mastered it. Once you start following politics, geopolitics, the first voices you will hear are conservative voices. You will need to take effort. You will make effort to find liberal voices. Why? The conservatives have mastered the art of alternative media. We need to learn from them. Don't think that if we are going to push Africa's interest and the African agenda, that we can do it without media. If we think that we're deceiving ourselves, to push the African agenda, to push the African narratives, we need to take control of media. And we are starting January 2025, this month of January. Me and you will start it. Me and you will start it. We will start it. Everybody, it is when you say Project Africa Media Movement. We are going to do this aggressively. Everybody will pick up. I will announce it soon because right now I'm building the social media platforms and I'm trying to set up the website, but the website is having several issues. Right? I don't want to go into details, but it's having some issues. So I'm thinking just to get it started. I'm just thinking of creating an online form. Let's just start with form because if you're waiting for a website, I don't want anything that would delay this thing. So let us just start. When the online form is ready, I'll announce it. Everybody sign up. Sign up. I will have a Telegram group where you can join. In the Telegram group, I'll be sharing breaking news within Africa, so that you can see the breaking news and you can use that breaking news and expatiate on it for your own talk, or you can expatiate on it for your own news outlet. If you're choosing to do a news outlet, whatever, you can expatiate on it. That's what we are going to do. January 2025, you're going to kick it off. Because if not, France can come and sell itself as something, and our people will believe. Our people will believe, but they will not know that there's an underlying plan to this. You see, as I like me now, I was rejoicing when I saw the ECOWAS echo. I didn't know that France had hijacked the ECOWAS echo until I saw this lady's Twitter thread. So we need to amplify voices like hers. Let Africans hear. Let Africans hear. Let Africans know what is going on. So let me know what you think about this sad news that the independence we thought African nations were exerting over France by kicking out the French military has turned out to be a sham. It is not independence, it's actually France's policy that these African leaders are helping France execute. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. And the ECOWAS echo, the case of Nigeria and France, even Ghana and Akufo-Addo and France, all of these things. Share your thoughts with me in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with your friends, your family, everybody, so that we can amplify the voices of Africans and we can let everyone know what is truly going on, the news behind the news. Let them know what is truly going on in Africa. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, and also probably you're thinking of supporting this African media movement that we're kicking off, feel free to use the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description and also on the screen. Thank you so much for joining me today.